How to harvest your genius intelligence, the masterclass. Welcome to Fresh Thinking University, where we curate the best content and wisdom from the wisest people who have ever lived. We create and curate knowledge which can inspire and equip you to become the very best person you were born to be, to accomplish and make a difference in the world. Why do some people appear to be endowed with extraordinary intelligence and others are not? To what extent is intelligence determined by genes? If intelligence is genetic, is changing it hopeless? Is everyone born with a certain intelligence level that can't be changed? Not exactly. This is where the magnitude of the effect becomes relevant. For example, a gene being statistically associated with intelligence does not mean it is solely responsible for how well you will do on IQ test. So many other factors come into play, and a gene is only one. So there is still a lot of other stuff contributing to intelligence aside from genes, including upbringing, lifestyle, and even technology. After all, even if a gene is 100% destined for you to be born with blonde hair, you can still use the fantastic human intervention of hair dye to turn it purple. On top of that, intelligence isn't everything, and it may not even be that meaningful of a thing. Individual cognitive domains like reasoning, short-term memory, and verbal ability are more specific than an overall intelligence score and likely have genetic and environmental determinants. So, getting higher scores in measures of those domains requires measurement, optimization, and healthcare, not just hoping for good DNA. You may be born with specific genes that benefit your brain, or 22 genes to be exact, but making the most of those genes is still up to you. The old myth that you only use 10% of your brain is actually nonsense and nonsensical. Why will you care if an iron spark went through the 90% of you and you never use it? But what might be true is that we only typically use a small part of our brain potential function. What if you could zap your head and take a pill like Bradley Cooper in the film Limitless and become insanely clever? Over the last 2 decades, this science fiction possibility started to approach reality. You can now buy gizmos to stimulate your brain with low doses of electricity on the internet. There is some evidence that this helps with depression and other disorders. But as is usually the case with new therapies, it is already being used by healthy people just to get better at video games, for example. Another big industry is that of smart pills, medicines initially conceived to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder were sold on the gray market to students and others who wanted a pharmaceutical boost to their powers of concentration. People with high IQs are not typically worse in areas such as emotional intelligence. They are better at everything. The latest scientific studies revealed striking findings. First, the brain is much more flexible and adaptable than previously thought. It can evolve and creatively work around limitations and nullify them. The phenomenon even includes brain-damaged individuals capable of achieving equal intelligence to the average person. How or why this is possible because of the brain's incredible capacity to restructure itself. The rewiring process falls under a category in neuroscience known as neuroplasticity. A broad term is the brain's ability to form new neural connections or reorganize itself to overcome or diminish the effects of old age, substance abuse, or traumatic head injury. Neuroplasticity is scientific proof that intelligence is not locked by a certain age or cannot fluctuate or increase. Not receiving a university degree or even a high school education doesn't mean genius abilities are out of the question. The same applies to those who come from a background of extreme poverty. History is littered with examples of uneducated and semi-educated individuals from impoverished backgrounds who have educated themselves. These individuals delivered revolutionary breakthroughs within academic circles, the corporate world, the art, and other walks of life. Great news! You can increase your genius intelligence. That's right. When the brain's potential is fully unleashed, there can be few, if any, limitations. Anyone who tells you otherwise is not up to date with the latest scientific findings on the brain, and they exhibit their own ignorance. The brain's potential is evident is human. The brain's potential is human. What if there are faster and easier ways to learn and study than the modus operandi currently being taught in mainstream education system? With the power of technology, any person can improve their intelligence within reason. Sacred techniques and technologies to increase IQ is the ultimate treatise on accelerated learning methods. Renowned geniuses examined include Apple founder Steve Jobs, who as a 19-year-old began practicing ancient discipline that activated previously dormant parts of his brain. Albert Einstein came up with his remarkable theory of relativity while using a rare method for accessing the subconscious mind. Kim Peek, the actual Rain Man, could speed read any book in 5 minutes flat with total comprehension. The Indian mathematical mastermind Srinivasa Ramanujan, although untrained, created unique formulas that left academics gobsmacked. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart composed entire pieces while in a specific altered state of mind. Among the discoveries shared with readers are brain waves common to geniuses and the various ways to include those brain waves. There are mental techniques the world's elite and A-list celebrities are quietly used to help them process information. For example, students and academics worldwide employ chemical substances to kickstart the brain into overdrive. And cutting-edge technologies business tycoons and professional athletes employ to gain cerebral edge over their competitors. Drawing on the latest findings in neuroscience, there are dozens of practical methods to increase your IQ and speed learn any subject. Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." Leonardo da Vinci once said, "The knowledge of all things is possible." Leading award-winning scientists stress that a good diet is vital in a child's early life. as the brain grows fastest during the first 3 years of life. However, studies have universally shown that eating can definitely influence your intelligence. That's right. Meditation and yoga. Meditation is proven to be an effective way to boost mind power. Brain scans of long-term meditators have consistently shown parts of their brains have been activated that haven't been activated in other individuals, and they are more regularly in the relaxing alpha and theta brain waves than non-meditators. Midbrain activation. The purpose of education in the future will not be to create people with heads crammed full of knowledge, but to rear children who know how to use the whole brain efficiently. Rearing children with enormous ability, rich creativity, and the capability to use a high proportion of their brain should be the goal of child rearing. The great news is that clinical tests have shown that consistent yoga practice can raise your IQ and increase your memory. Research has conclusively found that yoga, besides improving fitness, health, coordination and reaction time and memory, also positively influences IQ. The brain functions of attention, cognition, processing of sensory information, and vital and visual perception are honed with yogic practices. Yogic practices like Hatha Yoga, a medal of asanas, pranayama, meditation, and Om chanting increase blood feed to the brain. This helps in soothing the mind and enhances concentration. Memory power is given a boost while also improving the ability to maintain focus and concentration. A renowned genius who has perhaps influenced as many lives as any other creative thinker is Apple co-founder Steve Jobs. The tech industry's history has been well documented in books, movies, and untold news articles. Few are aware that Jobs was intensely interested in yoga. The other important discovery, perhaps the most crucial, to come out from leading researchers around the world is that higher intelligence is not necessarily something you are born with or genetically predisposed toward. Reading about the greatest minds in history, including recent history, more often than not reveals the individuals concerned employed specific learning methods. This masterclass shatters the myth that geniuses are always born with the exceptional intelligence and talent. Indeed, there are those born with extraordinary abilities, not fostered by educational methods. Still, peer-reviewed research findings reveal these natural gifted geniuses are definitely the exception, not the norm. There is evidence to support the contagious theory that Mozart's brilliance was the result of nature, as it was nature. If not more, the musical prodigy started composing at the age of 5, performing for audiences throughout Europe by 7 or so. And while achievements like that are undoubtedly extraordinary at those early ages, the critical point is that Mozart came from a musical family and was pushed to excel musically. As soon as Mozart could walk and talk, in fact, or even earlier, if you stop to consider, he was exposed to classical compositions while still in his mother's womb. The young Mozart's father, Leopold, was a renowned composer in his own right and an ambitious musical teacher. He wanted his son to achieve greatness. History tells us that Leopold forced Mozart Jr. to practice for many hours a day, even before reaching school age. It has been estimated that by the time Mozart was 6, he had already spent about 4,000 hours studying and practicing music. Perhaps a modern day equivalent to Mozart's father would be someone like Richard Williams, father of legendary American tennis champions Serena and Venus Williams. Upon deciding tennis was the way out of the ghetto, Williams Sr. pushed his daughters from a young age in his relentless quest for them to become world champions. One needs some natural aptitude to excel in most facets of life, be it mental, physical, or artistic. But if genius was simply a matter of inheriting good genes, then many more of us would be geniuses. Outrunning the conscious mind. What does it mean? The subconscious was always favored over the everyday conscious mind, which was considered too slow to be effective. So, developing a genius mindset essentially comes down to two things: operating at a speed and using the subconscious mind more than the conscious. This intuitive or relaxed approach to study is the polar opposite of the traditional and mainstream forms of education. Now, when we are forced to think slowly like this, our brain functions well below optimum levels. That is why school students often feel exhausted, as studying in this fashion is incredibly draining. But how can we feel mentally drained when neuroscientists and brain researchers agree that we use only a tiny percentage of our brain? Anytime study feels laborious, the student is most likely in the beta brainwave, which occurs when the conscious mind is governing. A dominant beta mind is a perfect recipe for mediocrity and also boredom. The subconscious mind comes into play in other less common brain waves, such as alpha, gamma, theta, and delta. These brain waves have also been activated when test subjects laugh, daydream, meditate, sing, dance, or spontaneously move about. How many math or English teachers will tolerate those activities in their classroom? What if there really is a much quicker, less methodical way of learning that allows you to learn without learning? Sounds paradoxical, doesn't it? I'm reminded of the quotation attributed to Arthur Schopenhauer, who said, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." Brain waves are a crucial part of accelerated learning techniques. Evidence proves that when individuals move out of a normal waking brain waves into other brain waves, which are alpha, theta, delta, and gamma, they enter the ideal state to absorb new information, whether the learning is analyzing complex equations, memorizing facts, or becoming an expert in martial art. It makes no difference. For example, German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said about genius, "Talent hits the target no one else can hit. Genius hits the target no one else can see." Another way to achieve accelerated learning and optimum mental performance is hypnotism. This technique has been shown in many scientific studies to prime the mind for intense concentration. Hypnotism has been used by countless renowned figures spanning numerous fields of expertise, including Albert Einstein himself. The German-born theoretical physicist was known to do hypnosis sessions every afternoon. Einstein's grand theory of relativity discovery entered his mind during those sessions. He used the hypnotic trance state to develop many of his other theories and formulas. American inventor Thomas Edison used hypnotism regularly. Self-hypnosis, in fact, for nearly a century. The science of the mind, psychology, developed independently from the science of the brain, neuroscience. Psychologists were interested in our mental functions and capacities, how we learn, remember, and think. Neuroscientists were interested in how the brain develops and functions. It was as if psychologists were interested only in our mental software and neuroscientists only in our neural hardware. Deeply held theoretical assumptions in both fields supported a view that the mind and brain could and indeed should be studied independently. These theoretical barriers have fallen only in the past 15 years or so. Cognitive neuroscientists are beginning to study how our neural hardware might run our mental software. In addition, how brain structures support mental functions and how our neural circuits enable us to think and also learn. This is an exciting new scientific endeavor, but it is also very young. For now, relatively little about learning, thinking, and remembering at the level of brain areas, neural circuits, or synapses. We know very little about how the brain thinks, remembers, and also learns. Ampy Dexterity. Many of the history's most renowned geniuses, scientific and artistic giants such as Albert Einstein, Michelangelo, Nikola Tesla, and Leonardo da Vinci were physically ambidextrous or equally proficient with their right and left hands. Baroque and classical music in general has been shown in some studies to aid students when learning new things or recalling information. Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, may be another way to increase IQ. Created in the US in the 1970s, it is claimed there is an essential link between the neurological processes, the neuro, and language, the linguistic. Therefore, NLP concludes that specific programming can achieve desired behavioral patterns. Famous practitioners of NLP include the likes of Warren Buffett, Gerald Butler, Tony Robbins, Russell Brand, Paul McKenna, and Andre Agassi. One theory suggests it is possible to model genius through NLP techniques. Modeling genius apparently requires NLP practitioners to model or adopt genius qualities they see in others. They wish to be like. Their ability to concentrate is the basis for everything else. Chess players often have very high IQs and seem to exhibit many of the telltale signs of genius. So, what does it do to a child's brain to play chess from a young age? Nobody knows for sure. and test results remain inconclusive today, it is undoubtedly challenging to study precisely, given it requires studying young chess players over the years, if not decades. Playing the board game. Experimental results were collected from the likes of the Grandmaster Eugene Torre Chess Institute in the Philippines and the United States Chess Federation and other chess schools worldwide. These bodies agree that playing the board game increases intellect in young people. However, a few small studies have also shown that chess players develop better memories, verbal skills, mathematical abilities, and healthier problem-solving skills and imaginations than the average person. What about drinking water? Now, this might fit into the apparent bleeding category. Still, drinking water can make a difference in mental alertness and overall cognitive skills. Here's why. Every time you drink water, it increases the brain's electrochemical activity. Conversely, dehydration slows electrochemical activity and effectively makes you dumber. Therefore, staying hydrated is a scientifically valid way to keep sharp mentally. Be warned that drinking the right sort of water is as important as drinking enough water, and no ordinary tap water won't do the job, folks. After all, tap water usually contains high levels of fluoride. Numerous studies have shown fluoride reduces IQ levels and, in some cases, even causes brain damage. Oops! Never a good thing for those wanting to become geniuses. The brain and technology. We trust you will now agree the brain's potential is human. But as technology evolves and new scientific breakthroughs occur, one thing seems inevitable. Super intelligence will be an option for everyone in the future. The signs are that the future is not far off. It seems the future has already arrived for the elite or those in the know. Based on research findings, geniuses are not usually born geniuses, or to put it another way, they are not necessarily born geniuses. However, in researching the lives of numerous geniuses, research findings from leading scholars worldwide produced surprising findings. Here is the excellent news. There are amazing effective tools and methods to increase your intelligence. Surprised to discover that most utilize various brain activation methods on their respective journeys to becoming acknowledged masters of their fields, their own fields. Individuals who reached the top of their respective fields employed their favored and favorable brain activation methods and disciplines. Many of those who reach the top of their fields use rare or little known methods to improve their mental powers. They do this to get the jump on the competition. Be that in the intelligence, business, political, arts, entertainment, literary, or sporting arenas, or indeed in any or all sectors of life. With that in mind, German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said about genius, talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. The masterclass suggests that geniuses are not usually or necessarily born geniuses. To put it another way, geniuses are not necessarily born geniuses. Many who reach the top of their fields use rare or little known methods to improve their mental powers to get the jump on the competition. The brain's potential is human, but as technology evolves and new scientific breakthroughs occur, one thing seems inevitable: super intelligence will be an option for everyone in the future. As a leader in your field, by learning to harness genius intelligence skills, you will be able to approach any situation or context systematically and scientifically, logically, and back your conclusions based on evidence that can stand the test of time. I appreciate you coming over, and we promise that only the very best content ever will be put on this platform. To continue your journey with Fresh Thinking University Masterclasses, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube platform. Let us know what inspires you and how best we can serve you on this platform. Hit the subscribe button and be the first person to get new content from this platform. Signing off, yours, Dr. Masasekani Mishak Kosa, the Thinking Futurist. Thank you. Thank you.